Hello, this is Diamonds United. I'm recording a creative stream. This is the work for Flotations and LCD Productions. So, here we go. I just tweeted out, so hopefully some people will come hang out. But it's okay. If they don't, we'll just sit here and stream. Oh my goodness. How to silence whatever that was. Okay. So here we go. I'm doing this project. It's excuse me. It's a series I'm doing for Flotations. It's called Sleeping Spring, and it's taking a collection of photographs from all over Michigan, really, but it's from the transition period. I don't know why I can't say that yet. Between winter and spring, so everything's kind of slowly waking up, and the plant life's not quite spring yet, but it's about to be. And so it's almost a little bit dystopian, because everything's kind of like dead still, but it's starting to wake up, so I want to get the transition between early spring and then late spring, and eventually it will turn into a summer series. And this video project is in 4K, but I'm not gonna edit it in at full resolution. Like, just allows me to have it render in like 20%. So that's like 720p. A little under that. Okay. So now I'm gonna add I'm not gonna do the full edit. I'm just gonna get all the assets where I want them. So now I'm going to import the photographs. Yeah, see, this is a problem. This is what's going to take forever, so I have to import them one at a time. So here we go. This is going to be kind of a longer process. And so this episode is from is photography from downtown Flint, and I shot there this weekend, this Saturday, and it was pretty cold. Pretty cold. The week before I shot at in the park. It was Kersley Park, and that episode of Sleeping Spring hasn't come out yet. It's it's gonna take a while for that one to come out. I mean, it's gonna come out next before this one does, but it's currently rendering. Right now I'm only rendering the HD version, and I'm just doing that because it's gonna be faster to do the HD version, and then I'm gonna go back and render the 4K version. But with Kersley Park, it's the episode's about an hour and 20 minutes, so it's taking a long time to render because most of it is going to be the animated slideshows, which is what I call photations, the photographic animations. But anyway, it's going to take a long time because the photograph assets, it's set to 25 megapixels, and then it has to animate that in 4K and everything. And so I bumped down the quality down to HD, which is 1080p. And I'm going to render that out first. And then that version will go to Patreon as early access. And then I'm going to have it do the same thing over again, but the second time in 4K. And that should take like 5 or 6 days to do it in 4K. And I'm not sure if it will be able to, not because of the processing power, but because I don't know if I have enough hard drive space. I originally tried doing the render. Again, the first time through I tried doing it in HD, and I ran out of hard disk space. And so I cleared out a drive, so it had like 980 gigabytes free. And so we'll see if that one works. But it looks like it's going to. It's about 2/3 of the way done. It only has like 40,000 frames to go, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be done. It should be done tomorrow or the next day, late tomorrow. So that's kind of that. But shooting at Kersley Park, that was I mean, it was fun. It was warmer. It was like 40 degrees, so that was like, I was like dying of heat. And I shot with the similar equipment. I shot with my Canon, and it's a crop sensor, but it's still a 35mm. It takes 35mm lenses. But so that was nice. And then I have this other camera. It's the YI. I don't know how you say that, YI, but it's a GoPro knockoff. I've used GoPro a lot. I had the GoPro 2, Hero 2, and then I went to the GoPro Hero 3 Plus. I had the black edition, so it does 2.7K, and then I was gonna upgrade so I could have, at least one camera that can do 4K video, and the GoPro was really expensive, and I was like, I'm not just sure, so I gave this YI a shot, and I'm really glad I did. The quality is there, and in fact, half of me thinks that it's like the parts from a GoPro. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it is like a knockoff company and they just copied, like the source code from GoPro, and it's all like, knockoff parts, but it's just as reliable as the GoPro, and it has all the features that I want. And what's nice is it's kind of like, it's not the exact same form factor. It's a little bit heavier, and that's just because of the battery, but the battery lasts longer than the GoPro's does. And then the 4K is really good, and the video quality in general is really high. But what I like about it is it's similar to the GoPro Hero 4, but it has a LCD screen in the back, so you can actually see what you're taking photos of, which you don't necessarily need with the GoPro, but it does make it a little bit nicer. With the GoPro, you can shoot. Now, if you don't know, but most of the GoPros don't have a screen on the back. They're kind of like the shotgun of photography, of cameras. I mean, you just point it in the general direction, and you have a 95% chance that whatever you're shooting will be in the frame, because the viewing angle of the GoPro is so wide. It's like, I think when I looked it up, it was like the equivalent of an 18 millimeter. It has 3 modes, and so kind of the zoom mode is 18 millimeters, then it's 12, and then it's like 10. So those are very wide angles. And the way GoPro does it is it just kind of crops the image, and so it's almost like a digital zoom, but you don't really lose that much quality, because it's well, with the 1080p you don't lose quality because it's an 11 megapixel sensor for the Hero 2, and so you have a lot of wiggle room where you can still shoot 1080p even though it's zoomed in. But with the Hero 3 Plus, you can do 2.7K. You can either do it in the super wide angle, or you can do it in the medium angle. And so that's like that's like 10 millimeters to 12 millimeters. But it's and you don't lose any quality, but you can't go any higher than that because the image sensor doesn't have enough megapixels to do a bigger digital zoom than you can't like crop it in anymore and still get like 2.7K. And so the YI, it kind of has a similar problem, but with 4K, you can only do the wide angle, which is okay. I mean, for the project, that's what I wanted. I wanted one camera to have a really wide angle and kind of show like the entire landscape of where I was shooting, and then I combined the photography from my Canon camera, and like I could focus in on what I wanted to show and get the details I wanted from specific places, and just frame things how I wanted, have more control over framing things where I wanted to, and have a lot of depth of field when I wanted, and versus the YI, which you don't have any depth of field really. I mean, it's a prime lens, but it like everything is in focus. The only thing that is not in focus is like maybe an inch away from the lens. So the depth of field is huge, you know. And like I said before, if you shoot, you point the action cameras at anything and you have a 90% chance that it's in focus and it's in frame. So I'm getting close to getting all my assets in. For some reason, I think there was an older version of Blender, and it would let you import all these images as separate files, but right now the only way you can get them in as separate files is by dragging them in one at a time, which is what I'm doing. and it takes a long time. With video, you can just select them all and it adds them all in, but not with the photography. Okay, so this is kind of the project where it's at. And then I'm gonna prep for the animation part. I'm not doing any animation tonight because it's gonna take forever, and I like to do it in one sitting. But I am gonna align things and get it ready to be edited. I probably will end up cutting the video and getting that to the length that I want to get it cut. But I'm not going to animate the photography. Okay, so I'm doing just some math. And so I like to have each photograph to be displayed for minimum of really 25 to 30 seconds. And that makes the animation like a lot smoother and less kind of jittery. And then the other way that I make the animation smoother is I actually, the video project is at 30 frames per second versus 24 frames. I really don't like 24 frames. Like I'm very much against it. The history of 24 frames is like questionable. 24 frames per second for video was the absolute worst you could get and still be passable. That's pretty much how they came up with 24 frames. It was because like if you're paying to getting the film developed, 24 frames per second was the lowest quality of really temporal resolution you could get before it starts to give people migraines or give people seizures and headaches and everything. And so it was kind of like the lowest common denominator, and that's how we got 24 frames. And I mean, if you can imagine, if you wanted to shoot 24 frames, 30 frames in film, that's 6 extra frames you have to shoot a second. So it adds up. It gets really expensive. So it was 24 frames was kind of decided on because it's cheap and again, like, you didn't get as many people having seizures or getting migraines from film. And then, you get a lot of people, directors and cinematographers, and they're like, 24 frames is golden. You get the nice, they say smoothness, but it's not smooth at all. And especially how a lot of people do film. I'm talking about film just as video, not film as in developing film. But with if you go to the movie theater, the motion is just so jittery, and part of the problem is the photographers will be shooting, or the cinematographers will be shooting at a higher frame rate, and you can't really do that with 24 frames because then everything becomes kind of like a flip book, and you get the flip book effect because we're shooting at the higher, not frame rates, but higher shutter speeds. You really take out all the motion blur, and with 24 frames per second, that's what makes it look more jittery and kind of unappealing. And then the other thing I don't like about it is that you can't really, you know, if you're shooting 24 frames, you really shouldn't be moving the camera around all that much, because, I mean, like I said, the temporal resolution, and there's two types of resolution. There's spatial resolution, and that's measured in units, like 1080p is spatial resolution. It's how many pixels you have. Temporal resolution is movement and time-based resolution. So how much time does your eye get to look at each frame? How long? Like how long does your eye get to look at each frame? How much data is happening, and how much of it is usable data? And so what I don't like is that people will shoot at 24 frames and then they do like the handheld or the big sweeping shots, and it's all almost unusable visual data, because it's all either blurred out or it's so choppy it just doesn't look good. And the blurred out comes from the loss of temporal resolution, where where like the camera's moving and everything's blurred out because of the camera movement, and nothing's really crisp, nothing's really clear. And so to combat that, that's kind of why I do the 30 frames per second, because essentially the screen is refreshing so much more that it lets your eyes do more of the motion blur versus the camera kind of losing all the data. And so then there are extremes. Like I didn't like 48 frames per second. I think that's it's weird. There are a lot of other frame rates that I don't really like, even though they're higher. Like a lot of the frame rates I don't like are actually PAL. That's PAL. It's like NTSC, and these are like different frame rate formats, and it's a region thing. Meaning like different parts of the world do different formats, but like in America, kind of the standard is 24 frames, and this is NTSC, 24 frames, 30 frames, and then 60 frames. But PAL, which is used a lot in Europe, is it's 25 frames and then 50 frames, and yeah, so that's kind of like, well, I mean, it looks odd. Like if you watch 25 frames next to 24 frames, it looks slightly different, but then 50 frames per second is really weird compared to 30 or even 60 frames. And so 40 frames per second kind of falls into that kind of weird factor. But there are some things that I like about 60 frames per second. Video and everything. I like 60 frames for like close-up shots, and you can really see like so much more face expression and micro expressions with 60 frames per second that you just completely lose with 30 frames or with 24 frames per second. And that's an example of getting more data from temporal resolution. Like there's a couple of ASMR artists that record at 60 frames per second for video. And it's really interesting because those are like more close-up shots, and like you can see different dilation from the eye pupils and everything, and more, you know, more expressions, like small expressions than you do, and then you see with other people or other YouTubers that use 30 frames per second. So whenever I find a video at 60 frames, it's like, oh man, this is going to be a treat. And I've taken some video at 48 frames per second. I did some test footage with my pet. This was years ago. I had a pet hedgehog, and his name was Spike. I was very creative. His full name was Sir Spike-a-Lot, and he was knighted. So that was pretty cool. And I did some test footage with 3D and shooting at 40 frames per second. And it was weird. It looks like it's fast forwarded, and your eyes never really get used to it. And I think it's just one of those weird formats. Like I really don't like 50 frames per second, and 48 is just so close to 50 that I think that's why I kind of react strongly to it. But again, I mean, like I said, I don't have that problem with 60 frames per second. I mean, like, I don't want to see everything in 60 frames, but when I do, I try and enjoy it. It's like a guilty pleasure almost. So I have two projects I'm going to do in this stream. And the other one is I'm going to be working on more film editing. This is photography film, not video film. And yeah, I'm still working on photographs from Italy. And it's medium format, which is huge film. It's over double the size of a 35 millimeter. So you just get you get a wider range of tone, and it's higher quality because, again, it's double the size. So you can fit so much more kind of data, but because it's film, it's actually the film grain. You get so much more detail than a 35 millimeter camera. So this is the second stream I did today. The first one I did a stream of just doing Flight Simulator and casually chatting as we flew around. We started off in Denver, Colorado, and then flew forever. Flew for like an hour and a half, and then ran out of gas, and then made like an emergency landing. But something weird happened where the landing gear didn't come out, so it was kind of like a crash landing. And then I took off again from the Grand Canyon National Park Airport and flew around the Grand Canyon for about another hour. So that was the other stream, and it seems to have held up pretty well. One of the reasons I don't do too many live streams is because I'm always worried about the audio quality. If you go back and look at kind of the original streams I used to do, and they're archived on YouTube at Thumbs United, the audio quality was like really bad, and like once you stream, all the audio is merged together, and you can't go back and edit it. And so what I would do is I would go and record the gameplay, and then kind of edit it to where I wanted. So I mean, I edited it so it's like one long stream of like either 40 minutes to an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then I'd do the voiceover over the edit. And that way I could, if there was like problems recording, I could go and either tune up the sound or turn it down or change the equalizer or something. So that's why I do the Let's Plays, and they're long Let's Plays. They're between an hour and a half and 2 hours now, and I'm gonna slowly get back into doing live streams now that I, one, I'm more familiar with it, and two, I know how to check the audio. Essentially, I do like 5 or 6 tests before I stream to make sure the audio is where I want it to be. But I also have a better setup now. I've always had the mixer, but it was set up okay for what I was doing. But now I really took the time to do all these different sound tests and everything, and I know it a lot better than when I first started out streaming. And a lot of that has to do with actually live to tape. The other YouTube channel I run, I did some experimentation, and the story time for live to tape, it's recorded binaurally, which means it's 2 microphones spaced apart, and then one microphone is on the left side and the other microphone is on the right side. And so that and then one microphone only records to like the left channel, and then the other microphone records to the right channel. And so a lot of people that do ASMR use binaural microphones like that, and live to tape isn't not quite ASMR, but it is supposed to be relaxing stories. It's classic stories from around the world. And so that's why I chose to do it binaurally, and I just feel like it's so much a higher quality sound than just recording mono and having that output to stereo. And it's funny because, one, I don't really like my voice, but two, it's just like the detail in audio is really high. Like when I print out the scripts when I have to read them, because I shut down all the computers and I just record to my audio recorder, the mixer plugs into the audio recorder, and I record that way. So it's all solid state. There's no fans. There's no computer noise. And then I'm recording in the basement, so it is pretty quiet. And so it's funny because one, you can understand what I'm saying a little bit better, but with the binaural setup, and then two, like little things like me turning the pages of the script. It's just like you can hear individual paper, you can hear the page turning, you can hear the other papers rubbing up against each other. It's like wow, that is a lot of detail that you just don't hear a lot of times in other like audio recording. And so after starting Live to Tape, I've been paying a lot more attention to sound, and I'm actually going out, and when I film these projects, starting with Sleeping Spring, I'm going out and recording the audio from the location, and actually putting it in the video. I think it sounds so much better. It's so much more atmospheric and peaceful to watch. Everywhere I've gone, they always say that you can have the worst quality camera, you can have all your settings wrong, everything, but if you have bad sound, then nobody wants to they'll judge you for that. Yeah, the sound is like very unforgiving, and that's because our eyes are pretty cool. Our eyes, they will adjust to bad footage. They'll adjust to things that are out of color. The eyeballs adjust. That's why they say you can, don't trust your eyes, because they'll change the way you look at everything. But ears don't do that. They hear everything exactly as it is, and they don't correct it. I mean, you can kind of say like, oh, if you're listening to a lot of loud stuff, they'll close off to try to protect themselves. But in large part, they don't change the way we hear things too much. And so, like, if there's noise or like a high-pitched noise or a squeal or anything with audio, your ears will pick it up and it can't ignore it. That's kind of what your eyes do, is like they ignore the bad data. Ears don't do that. So that's why I'm kind of focusing more on getting real world sound effects and environmental sounds at the same locations as I take photographs from, and at the same time of day. The same location at different times of day sound completely different. Okay, we're getting pretty close to being done with this process. So yeah, this project's gonna be longer, like the other project. It hasn't come out yet. It's going to Patreon first. It's The Sleeping Spring, but at Kersley Park, which is also in Flint, Michigan. And that one's an hour and 20 minutes, and it looks like this one's gonna be close to that. It's probably gonna be an hour and 10 minutes or an hour. So it's gonna take a long time to process and render. It is okay. The Sleeping Spring series don't really have a release schedule. They just come out when they're ready. They come to Patreon first for a week exclusive, and then they come out to the public after that. Okay, we're done with this process. And then we're just gonna I'm gonna add the transform. And this layer, the layer I'm about to add, is this allows me to do the flotation, the animated slideshow. And I add it to all the photographs. The photographs are the bars in purple. And like I said before, I'm not animating tonight. I'm gonna, after this part, I'm gonna go and edit the video portion of this project. And so then once it renders, the photographs are taken at 20 megapixels, but I wrote a program, and it enlarges it slightly, so then it gets enlarged to 30 megapixels, and that helps smooth out the digital effect. And so that just means that I don't have to worry so much about the video coming out pixely or anything like that. 4K is about 8 megapixels, and so because I shoot at 20, I mean, I could easily do, I could zoom in 2 times, and it would still be a pixel ratio of 1:1. It would be greater than that. The photography, the photo would still be have more pixels than the actual 4K project settings, but I can still upload it to up-res it to 30 megapixels just in case. And so sometimes I go a little over 2x zoom when animating, but it's rare. When I animate for 3D or the VR, the 3D VR, then I'm really limited on how far I can zoom in before the data kind of gets garbled a little bit. And it's not so much that the data gets garbled; it's that it gets difficult to view in the VR goggles or on a 3D TV. It's like going cross-eyed and everything. So I never go above like times 1.3 zoom, which isn't that much of a zoom. But working with these projects in just 4K and shooting with a 35mm camera and everything, you can zoom in more than the 1.3 times, and still be a higher quality than 4K. The goal is to never go below 4K resolution. It should always be at the higher than that. And so after this, I'm going to go and we're going to cut up the video. These are just photos, the purple. Here's the video. And this just sets kind of the start and the end frames. So everything within this light gray is not going to be rendered. So here we go. So the way I edit this, I cut off the beginning because that's just me pressing the camera. And then essentially what I do is I just play it, and so I look at it, and essentially once I get bored of that shot, that's as long as the clip will be. And so because it's 4K, I mean, there's so much more detail, so you really can just look around without changing the shot or anything. So again, cut off the beginning, and then just look around the image. I just go from, kind of scan it and see what's interesting, and then I go for as long as I want. I mean, not as long as I want, as long as I find it interesting. Oh, and so what I was saying about going back to the YI camera, which is like a GoPro knockoff, the 4K was pretty good, and it had almost all the same features the GoPro had, including kind of what GoPro calls their Pro Tune. There's a higher bitrate video, but then in addition to that, it shoots a flat image with flat color, and so it's kind of like shooting with log. It's a little bit like shooting with RAW, where the camera doesn't do any color changes. It doesn't even change the time of day. I mean, the time, like the color temperature or anything. It's exactly what the camera sees as the camera sees. And so it's a lot of work you have to do on the back end, but you get so much more control over which coloring you want to do. And so it's similar to shooting RAW with photography and RAW in like video film. So that's nice. That part is nice that the camera does it. But the way I recorded this, it's not with that flat image color. I actually set the white balance on the camera to cloudy, and as you can see, it was pretty overcast this day, and it was cold. It was 30 degrees when I was out, which, I mean, technically that's warm, but I wasn't wearing a really thick jacket or anything when I went out to shoot. And then, yeah, the weather's been really weird. Usually, like March, at the end of March, there's more. It's not snowing so much, but now it's like today. There were snowstorms. I was driving in it. That's why I was late streaming. But it was like I came down and went to my office, and then like you could see the grass. It was sunny, and then I came up after doing the first stream, and it was just snow everywhere. And I was like, seriously, it was dreadful. And then I went driving, and as I was driving, just huge amounts of snow came, and it was just incredible that it's snowing this much now. And then tomorrow it's supposed to be 40 degrees. And I'm like, seriously? And so then after I streamed earlier, I watched this one video to just kind of to chill out and relax. I got really nervous at the beginning of the other stream. I got nervous at the beginning of this stream too, to be honest, but it wasn't as much as the first time. It was like I don't know, I don't get like stage fright in real life, but like even when I'm recording like straight to tape, I get nervous just going in front of a microphone. I don't know why. It's like I'm getting up and standing in front of a million people. Even when I'm not recording, when I'm not streaming, it's just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. The adrenaline starts pumping and everything. But after I did the first stream, I watched this kind of like relaxing video, and then I was like, I cooked a pizza, leftover pizza. Then I came back to my office and started my homework. My plan was to do the homework for both classes today. I have the advanced C++ and networking class. And it's networking for computer networking, not like social networking, which would be terrible if I had to take it. And actually a lot of the classes are kind of like that. But that's another story. And I was only able to finish the C++ homework. I mean, like, I could have done it, but then I would have been even later, and I didn't want to. I had some errands I needed to run today, so I went and did those. But the homework for C programming, it was dreadful. We had to write a program, and it had to see, you had to enter a word, and then the program had to figure out how many different words you could get out of that word. So their example was like, if you entered swimming, the program would have to say, okay, you entered swimming. Well, you could get swim, you could get win, you could get something else. But it had to list every word you could get if you rearranged the letters in the word. I was like, it was dreadful. So then I sat and I kind of stared at the blank project. I was like, how am I going to do this? And then I figured it out, but it was rough. At first I was like, I have to make a program that has like all the words. But then I was lucky and double checked, and the teacher was like, here's a text file with all the words it has to search through. So that part was lucky. And then that was one less thing I had to worry about. And then the teacher gave us an example. The way it works in class is we sit there, we have the lecture. The lecture only really lasts the first 30 minutes of class. And then he assigns a programming project we have to do in class. And we have to do it individually. And then, so once we do that, then after that we have group work where we work in a group and we're programming for robots. And that part's interesting. But the in-class project assignment, I mean, it's funny because like we do it and then we have to email him, and then after we all email him what we did for the project, he goes and he shows us publicly, he shows everyone what your source code was, and then he runs it to see if it works. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, because that part you get nervous for. Because, I mean, you hope it runs on his computer, but, everyone's judging you by either how many lines of code you have or if you don't have. And then if you put comments or not. But what happened was, last class, he assigned us to do this one programming project, and none of us figured out how to do it. And then he was like, oh, you guys are like really suffering. I'm just gonna show you how I did it. And so he showed it, and it was just like, wow. And like, my code was about 300 lines of code, and I hadn't even got to the point where I was able to test it yet. I still had a lot more code I needed to write. And then it was just dreadful. And so he posted his source code, and he was like, this is how I wrote it. And so I went and for my homework, I was able to kind of reverse engineer his code and get it to work for the homework. And so it's not really plagiarism, hopefully. But I mean, I changed his code completely. They do two different things, but it was I was just really happy that I was able to see that code and get it to work. Because I would probably still be sitting there trying to do do that homework. I mean, I started at 4 p.m. and then I was finished at around 6. So it took 2 hours. And a lot of it was debugging. There was like a logic bomb. And that's kind of like when you use logic and you set up everything the way you want it to set up. But your logic is essentially wrong, even though it seems like it should be right. So the program works, it's just not doing what it's supposed to do. And that's what a logic bomb is. And so then I had to fix that, and then it worked. So then I entered in Lloyd, and it said, it said like Dolly, doll, something, and some other things. And I was like, oh, good. So it would actually search the file with all the names and then see if any of them could rearrange the numbers. So we're about halfway done with the video. The video aspect of this, and we'll see how tired I am. It's 11:16. I'm probably gonna stream for probably after this part. I'll finish the stream and we'll pick up tomorrow in the morning with this project. So yeah, we're getting close to the end of this. And I'm getting pretty tired. It was a long day. I had really confusing dreams last night. And then I woke up and I was like really exhausted, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be another one of those days. But I mean, like I I didn't have bad dreams, but it was just like they were draining. It was like really active and a lot of running around. And then I have like this kind of, it's this dream format that I kind of have where I'll get like stuck in a loop where the dream just keeps repeating over and over again. And I've actually had kind of a dream where I'm like dreaming in computer code. It's like in Python or C. And I just get stuck in a loop where I'm just programming the same thing over and over. It just never stops. It's like an improperly set up while loop. And usually when I have those dreams, I wake up and it's like 2 or 3 p.m. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have been dead. It literally feels like I've come out of a coma. And it's just like, you're just so tired. And then because you woke up at 2 or 3 p.m., it's like, it's almost time to go back to bed. And so it really messes up your whole week. But then the other kind of dream I have is where like I'll be dreaming that I'm in bed and I wake up, but I'm paralyzed and I can't move. And then it takes like I just focus forever, and it takes all my energy to roll out of bed. And so I'm finally able to shift my body weight and roll out of bed. And then the second my body hits the floor, I'm like, yeah, I'll be able to get out. It's still paralyzed, but... And so then the second my body hits the floor in the dream, the dream starts over, where I'm back in bed and I can't move. I can't move at all, and it takes all my energy to roll over. And so that's the other kind of looping dream I have. And they're like dreadful. And then, yeah, I'm getting a little tired. Kind of run out of things to talk about. I mean, I have a list, but I don't know if I want to save that stuff for tomorrow. I do. I guess I'll talk about it. But I've been having kind of a problem with people on, not people, all the people. It's just like, it's 1 or 2 people. But it's getting a little tiring where I'm getting a lot of people who are like, oh, follow me and I'll follow you. And it's just like, no. Like on Twitter and stuff, people that follow me, like I go and I look at their account and everything, and I make sure they're not spam or make sure they don't like say horrible things. And a lot of times on Twitter I'll follow back, but that's pretty much it. I don't follow back on Instagram, and I used to do that on Instagram, but then there was just like a lot of like sketchy people, and they just, the second you follow back, they unfollow. And with Instagram, it's just like you can't really. It wasn't at the time. It wasn't easy to see, who would do that to you. It's just like, seriously. And so I don't really do follow for follow anymore. But so I went through on Instagram. This is kind of a separate story, not having to do a follow for a follow. But I was following a lot of people, and I would only see the same 5 people posting all the time. And so I was like, and it wasn't necessarily the people I wanted to see. So I went through, and everyone I was following, and if I didn't recognize who they were, I just unfollowed them, because I was just like, I don't see anything from these people. And so then I did that, and about 2 days later, this person DMs me, and he's like, I am shocked. I am surprised. And he was like, when I saw that somebody unfollowed me, I never thought it would be you of all the people. And then he continued and went on, and he was like, oh my goodness. It was just horrible. And he was like, I've supported you for so long, and if you expect to have my support, you better follow me back, or else I won't support you at all. And so, like, the support this person did, like, he would occasionally like a photograph. Just liking things is, it's okay, and it kind of sends a signal that, somebody likes it, but it's not like that great of a support, so to speak. And so essentially this person was just like, the only reason why he was following me was because I was following him. And so, like, he didn't actually like my photography. He didn't actually like my account. It was just a numbers game. And so instead of me going back and following him, like, I don't know how you could like write what he wrote to me and expect me to be like, oh, dear Lord, I better go follow this person right away, or else they won't ever like an image from me. It's just like, obviously doesn't like anything I do enough to just follow because he likes it. And so I blocked him. I just like, I didn't want him to like keep sending me messages and everything. And so I was just like, nope, I'm not gonna deal with that. So that was kind of like the horror story of follow for follow. But it's just like, wow. Like, and like, he probably doesn't even know how insulting he came off. It was just like, if he would have asked nicely and was just like, hey, I really like your content, maybe you should, keep following me, just say it nicely. But he was accusing me of like doing this horrible thing, and it was against, and I was just like, I don't know who you are. But now that you're texting me this stuff, I guess I will unfollow you, good sir. Okay, so we're gonna save it. And that's pretty much it for this night stream. It started later than I wanted to. I wanted to start at 8. But yeah, it didn't work out. I just had a lot of errands and what's it called? Just things to do. Housework. So, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to be streaming this project tomorrow in the morning. I should start around probably 11:30 or so. We'll see. I'll just be live when I'm live. I'll tweet it out. So thanks for stopping by. This was editing Downtown Flint for Flotations, and it's part of the Sleeping Spring project. So thanks for coming by. See you tomorrow.